Hi there, owls. Welcome back to JoanMedia, the channel where you can learn about software automation, technology in general, and marketing. It's a pleasure to have you here again. Thank you very much for all the support you are providing for this particular channel. If you like this kind of videos about learning about TestCafe, Cypress, and other test automation frameworks, please make sure to subscribe, let a like, and it will be amazing. I feel your appreciation in that way, and I like that, to be honest. All right. So today we're gonna have a very interesting video about how to read a Excel file with TestCafe, actually with JavaScript, but we're gonna integrate the functionality to TestCafe. All right. So today we're gonna have a very interesting video about how to test this login page. All right. If you haven't seen the how to read the JSON file with TestCafe, I highly recommend you to watch that video because it's pretty similar than reading an Excel, and might be very interesting to have another workaround if you're kind of looking for a solution, right? So I'm gonna try to give you a quick introduction about the scenarios that I want to cover in this video. All right, using this login page as the page that we want to test, right? We're gonna perform three different scenarios. All right, the first one is using the correct username and password. All right, if you take a look at what happens when we log in correctly, it says, or it actually displays a past or a message saying you logged into a secure area, right? We're currently on the home page and it is fine. That's the very first scenario that we want to make sure that it's working. I'm gonna press logout real quick, and we're gonna test two different scenarios, which is when the username is not correct and the password is not correct. So if I enter a correct username but the wrong password, you will see that this message changes, and actually it says your password is invalid. So in the another scenario is when the username is not valid. All right, so you can see here that it says your username is invalid. So I'm gonna write down all the data that I need in an Excel file. As you can see here, I'm gonna name the headers as username, password, and expected message. All right, so the first row, the second row, to be honest, over here is gonna have all the valid credentials that we need to get the logged into a secure area, right? Using Tom Smith and super secret password, you will get this expected message as you want. However, if we enter JoanMedia as the username, which is not valid, and a valid password, it should display the message your username is invalid. That's correct, right? And if we enter a correct username but an invalid password, you will get the message saying your password is invalid. So I guess that that's basically the data that our Excel is gonna have. I just have downloaded this test data in my desktop, and actually it is saved in my desktop. So I'm gonna copy the Excel file, which is testdata.xlsx, and I'm gonna look for the place I have my project downloaded, and it is over here, TestCafe tutorial, and I'm gonna save that Excel file inside of the folder data. All right, inside of here. So once this is done, and I'm gonna proceed to start coding, actually, as you're gonna take a look over here. As you can see inside of data, now we have the test data.xlsx, XLSX, yeah, that's correct. And we cannot see that because obviously Visual Studio doesn't have that particular view, but we know that that's basically the structure that we have over here, right? I don't have Excel neither in my computer installed, so I use the online version. That's why I'm using the Google version of Excel. So let's start coding and see how we can implement this solution. So inside of the folder tests and then data driven, we're gonna create a new script. All right, it is gonna be named data driven underscore Excel, just to make sure that we understand and see that it is the correct test the correct fixture, right? So I'm gonna proceed to just skip this particular test case, that it was the way of how we can read the JSON file. And it is another video if you're interested about that, how we can read the JSON and use that for test data or data driven testing. You can go ahead and click on the card that you will see at the bottom of this video. All right, so let's start working with the data driven Excel example. So the first thing that we have to do, well, is import the selector API actually from TestCAFE. We need the task controller and we need the client function. Or actually, I'm not sure if I'm gonna need it, but I'm gonna just call here in case I need it. Client function, and then from TestCAFE. All right. So now we have the basics from TestCAFE in our tests, and I also need to install something else. As you can see here in the package.json, we just have two different dependencies right now. We have TestCAFE and TestCAFE Blink Diff. We know for why they are installed. We have covered this in previous videos, but today I actually need to install another dependency. I need a different dependency in order to manage Excel files. How we can do this? So basically, I'm gonna perform CLS over here, and the thing that I need is another library, which is npm install, and the library name is NODE-XLSX, which is the extension of the Excel file, right? So I'm gonna perform and install this library, and as you probably will see, we will have another dependency installed in our project. So as you can see in the dependencies part of the package.json, we have now Node-XLSX installed in our project. We can use it. So I need to import this library in our test, or actually in our JS file. All right. So I'm gonna import this from Node-XLSX. Right. Amazing. So now we have installed and imported that library. Now, what we have to do, basically, I'm gonna create different variables, and I'm gonna try to explain you what is happening over here. All right, I'm gonna create a constant variable named Excel file, and I'm gonna name this as XLSX dot parse or parse. I'm not sure how to pronounce this in English. And basically, with this command, we're gonna be capable to read the Excel file, and it will be stored as a JavaScript object. All right, so we just have to determine the place that it is safe. In my particular case, is inside of data, and then inside, or actually, we have to declare the file name, right? There's data.xlsx. As you can see, is inside of data over here, and inside of it there is the file. So I'm gonna save the file, and now I'm gonna create another variable, which is another constant variable, and it is gonna be Excel sheet. Cool. And it is gonna be referring to the Excel file that we actually declared before, and inside of it we're gonna use the key find in order to actually define the tab or the sheet name that we want to look. So if we take a look of this Excel file, you can see that this sheet name is data. All right, so I'm gonna call this, or I'm actually gonna find the data sheet. All right, amazing. We have declared the first two variables that we need. And now we have actually, our data is now structured properly, or actually it is not structured properly. And I'm gonna try to explain you why. Basically, right now our data looks something like that. I'm gonna show you this right now. As you can see, we have 4 different arrays, right? and we need to perform, or actually to transform these arrays into a JavaScript object, so we can actually iterate and identify each record and field, and we can handle this in regular JavaScript. I'm gonna try to explain you how we can achieve this. All right. So the first thing that I want to do here is extract the headers contained in the first array using shift. I'm gonna try to explain you how to accomplish that. I'm gonna declare a constant variable named headers, and it is gonna be equal to Excel sheet. Let me see. I think that I am missing a particular step, which is const Excel sheet data. All right. Right now I have declared, or actually we have mapped the sheet name that we actually want to work. However, I haven't got the data. It's stored in a single variable, so I need to actually proceed and declare the Excel sheet data. All right. Yeah, that's it. Now we're fine. We have our data. The data that is actually inside of the data sheet, it is now stored in this particular variable. That's good. So what is the next step that we have to do? Basically is declare another variable, which is gonna be named as headers. All right. So I'm gonna perform I'm gonna play with the sheet data. All right. And I'm gonna get, or actually call the method shift. All right. That's good. I'm gonna just call this. And basically what we're gonna do here is we're gonna extract the headers contained in the first array using shift. All right. So basically right now it leaves the Excel sheet data variable with 4 arrays containing the data needed for the tests. All right. So what we have to do next is actually use the map function to create an array containing each record as an object in the format we want to for the test. Map goes through each array and creates a new object with the data, setting the header fields as keys for each value. I'm gonna try to explain you how we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna try to actually give you an example or an overview of what is gonna be the end results. All right. So we're gonna declare another constant, which is gonna be named dataset. All right. And inside of dataset, I'm gonna call the Excel sheet data, and I'm gonna call the function mapping or map, and I'm gonna actually create a parameter named row, and using the arrow functions we're gonna perform different actions over here inside of it actually. So I'm gonna create another constant inside of this function, which is gonna be named user, I'm sorry. And inside of I apologize, I don't think that user is good. Let me just think about it. Yeah, it's probably better. No, it is actually fine, right? User, because yeah, it is fine. Users, apologize for that. User, and it's gonna be an array, or actually an object. Apologize. And we're gonna perform a different a function over here, which is gonna be row, that for each. All right. And inside of it, we're gonna send 2 different parameters. Let me just show you that. We're gonna actually be expecting data and the IDX, which is gonna be the name, or actually the key that we're gonna save. All right. So we're gonna use another arrow function, and inside of it, we're gonna save the data inside of the user object. We're gonna specify where we want to yeah, we want to store the information with IDX over here, and then we're gonna specify the data that we want to enter inside of the in the object. So it is gonna be basically, or we're gonna be basically using the data. So once each row is stored inside of the user object, and we have all the data inside of that particular object, we're gonna just return the user. All right, and that's it, I guess. We have just formatted our data in order to have an object, JavaScript object, and it will be easier for TestCAFE and JavaScript to read that particular file. So if you ask me what is the difference or what has happened, as I told you before, the way that the information was extracted in this line, in the sixth line, it will be something like that. It will be 3 different arrays, but it is not the structure that we are actually looking for, right? So with this particular lines, we have achieved something very different, and actually, well, something kind of easy to understand if we think about it. We have ordered our information in different objects. So basically, we have our username here, we have our password, and the expected message inside of a single object, and so on. We have all the variations that we need inside of an array with different objects inside of it. So that's basically what is happening inside of this in this code. All right. So that's basically it. That's what is happening, and now it is gonna be pretty similar than the things that we have done with the JSON file, because basically we have parsed our Excel file into a JSON file, right? Into different objects or JavaScript objects. So the next thing that we have to do over here is, well, start working with this. So I'm gonna call a new fixture, which is gonna be named as in this particular case is an Excel file, right? And we're gonna call this test, or we'll see, data driven demo. Yeah, that sounds good. Then I need to well, actually call the dataset, which has all the JavaScript objects inside of the array, and for each of it, let me just check if I'm currently recording. Yeah, it's fine. For each object, we're gonna actually extract the data. All right, and using the arrow function, we're gonna start performing our tests, or actually executing our tests. Right there. So inside of this loop, we're gonna actually call, or actually declare our test function. Inside of the test, we're gonna call the page or the URL that we want to visit. In this particular case, it was, let me see, it was this one, the login URL. Sounds good. And let me see, right? We have just opened up the URL. Now I need to call, or actually name the test. And this particular case is gonna be named login page validation. All right, and we're gonna make sure and have a kind of the way of tracking what is happening. I just need to change this to backticks. All right, and I'm gonna call the data that expected message that we have stored inside of it. Expected message. All right. You will understand why I am putting this here. You will see. And well, once this is named, I just need to well, call the async function, if I'm not wrong, and call the test controller, and then again call a new arrow function. Yeah. So now inside of the test, what we have to done is well, actually call the test controller and start typing and clicking buttons. So we're gonna maximize our window in order to have a better overview of what is happening. We're also gonna type text, where it is a very good question, and that's something that we have covered in the last video, but let me just show you how I'm gonna well, actually select the elements. So we have an input for the username, an input well, element, and if you see, we have an ID with the attribute of username. So basically, I just have to call the selector library, the selector API, and inside of the selector, actually specify which is the selector that I want to actually find. So input ID username. And once we have find the element, now we just have to pass the data that I want to actually send. In this particular case, it will be the username of the row that the loop is or actually have. So yeah, that's the username that I want to pass. And then again, I need to type text, call another selector declaration over here, and probably it will be pretty similar. It is another input with the ID password. So it is gonna be input with ID password. That's good. And with the comma, we're gonna send also the data, that password that we have declared in our Excel, right? So you remember here, it is the password. And at the end, we're gonna actually call the expected message. Let me just check I'm recording. Yeah, I am. And that's it. I guess that we're going good. And the last interaction that we have to perform is basically a click, right? With a click, we just have to send the selector that we want to find. In this particular case, it is the button element. Because if you take a look of the website and we actually look for a button, you will see that we only have one button. So we just have to call the element. So that's good. Once this is done, once all the interactions are done, what we have to do is well, call the assertion using await. We're gonna call the expect method in order to send the actual value. And how we're gonna do this, basically, as you can see, we have a kind of card at the top of the website, and it has an ID of flash. So we're gonna get the text inside of that particular ID div. I'm sorry. So how we can do this? Basically, we're gonna also call the selector API, and we're gonna look for the div with ID flash. All right. Once this is done, I'm gonna get the inner text that particular element is in the website. And once we have the actual value inside of the expect part of the assertion, we have to validate what we want to do. In this particular case, I want to validate if the actual value contains, all right, the data that expected message. All right, which is basically if the username is valid, if it is not, if we're currently in a secure area. So that's how we're gonna make sure that the message is present or not. So once this is done, I'm gonna place a semicolon there, and it should be working right now. I'm not sure, probably it is not, but let's try to run this. So I'm gonna open up the package.json, and basically we have a test data driven already declared, one script ready to be executed, which is well, having the same structure that we know. Right now we should know this, basically using TestCafe as the first keyword, then the web browser that we want to actually execute. Then the path where the test cases are. In this particular case, I have two different JS files inside of that data driven. However, the JSON feature is currently skipped, so it shouldn't be executed right now. It should just only execute the .js file. So yeah, I think so that probably if I run the test data driven script, it should be running the Excel file and the Excel validation. So I'm gonna try that. npm run test data driven, and let's see if it is working or not. Hopefully it is. It should be opening our web browser. And it is not working. Let's see why. Cannot prepare test due to an error, and it says that type error, data is not a function. Let's see why it is not a function. Excel sheet that data. Yeah, it should be working then. Because Excel sheet data, Excel sheet over here, and it says that data is not a function. All right. It's very interesting. Why is happening that? It doesn't say a lot of. It doesn't provide me with a lot of details. Let me just think about this real quick. It is inside of the data. All right, I think that this is something missing here, and it's basically that we have to find the sheet. So the way that we have to do this is with another arrow function. Yeah. So with sheets, I'm gonna call another arrow function, and using the sheets that name property and looking if the actually comparing if the sheet name is data. Now we should be able to track the data inside of data. I know this is kind of tricky. I hope that you're understanding. Now I'm gonna perform again the test. Let's see. All right, it is opening now. Hopefully it runs. And it is. It seems to be working. It is currently logging correctly. Now we should be able to reproduce the wrong username and then the wrong password. And that's good. As you can see, now we have executed the Excel data driven demo, and we were capable to read that file in a very interesting way. It is another workaround of how we can perform data-driven testing, and probably, well, it's kind of messy, I know, but this structure that we have here is the base of every, or well, how to read different headers and different test data. We just have to be careful of implementing this same logic if you need it. So I think that right now we have covered the goal of this video. Hopefully it can help you to understand how this works, and I hope that it actually helps you if you are kind of facing this scenario in your real job. So please subscribe. I know that it is a lot of information. Please let me know in the comments below if you have some kind of comment or feedback. I'll appreciate that. And I think that that's it. Please subscribe. Please let a like in this video if you want to keep actually watching this kind of content. And see you in the next video for sure. Thank you very much for watching. This was JoanMedia, and see you soon. Goodbye.